Hello, this is Compound Interest Stock Guy, and today we're here with Scott Sycamore, and we're going to be talking about extraction companies, and we'll discuss a little bit about crypto, but mainly about extraction companies that we're focusing on in the cannabis industry as well as hemp CBD. So stay tuned. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It helps my channel grow. I appreciate it. Subscribe to Scott Sycamore as well if you're interested in what he's got to say. He's got some good videos. Why don't you talk about a little bit about your channel?
I am not the weed police, by the way. So my channel, I haven't uploaded in a couple weeks now, but it's my commentary on news items of the day, such as the Woodstock 50th anniversary lineup happening this summer, and other maybe political stuff, and I talk a little bit about cannabis stocks and crypto and all that, but there's always room for more. Things
So,
change every
so
day.
you're
So,
mainly a metalhead, right?
I've been infected with the metal bug recently to a major degree. Yeah, but I mean, was a hip hop head forever. I like electronica and I don't know, classic rock, whatnot, top 40 bubblegum horse shit.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I like to rock.
So, before we get into this, we want to disclose we're not financial advisors. This is just for entertainment information purposes. Do not buy or sell based on anything we talk about. Buy or sell after you did your research and your due diligence and you think it's a good investment.
Right? But remember, as long as we're not getting any money from offering financial advice to people, it's all good, man, I think.
Yeah, well, I think there is like I think you're not allowed to tell people to buy something because it breaks the SEC code and they have like something. It's probably just to protect financial advisors keeping their jobs and stuff like that. That's probably some of the reasoning, but I don't know.
There's always little laws and loopholes going on. That said, let's talk about weed shit
Yeah, yeah.
and
So,
how to make money from it.
so I recently got invested into Halo Labs that he's been talking about, and I think they are actually going to be a good player because I bought 500 shares, I think, or maybe 600 shares. I spent
You
about
said
like
500. You told me 500, but yeah,
somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact number, but I picked up a few shares at around, I don't know, like 73, 74 cents Canadian. So I'm pretty much just neutral because after my commissions. But basically, I think they're gonna be going good, and then at the end of the year, what's that?
yeah, you mentioned like you're basically even is what you're saying right now. But
Yeah, the
you
revenues
were
are
told,
the revenues are
yeah,
improving month over month. So
yeah, man, the contracts, the revenues, it keeps getting better basically, and that's what you want. So yeah, we're very curious to see where they're at end of year. It's another, we just I guess finished the first quarter, so now we have three more, right? And yeah, it's going. You had told me about their warrants today, which I did not know about. So tell us that. Oh, can you buy those in America? I
I
don't think you
I
can.
honestly don't know anything about the warrants. I just basically I thought you told me them. I just know that based on the warrants that they could be a good deal because if they're going for 25 cents, I haven't looked into that and I'm going to look into that, but there's a possibility maybe if it goes a little higher, maybe I'll sell and then rebuy the warrants just to play the upside.
War, yeah, I mean warrants. It's kind of like for me, it's what do they call it? It's like six of one, half a dozen of the other, something like
Yeah,
that. So what I mean is,
warrants are
yeah.
basically they're very risky derivatives of the underlying share, but
Hmm.
based on it, if there's a lot of time on the expiration, then you're pretty safe as long as it's not like too crazy out of the money. And
Hmm.
these don't seem to be that far out of the money, but I have to look into them. But I'm
Well,
not sure if
yeah,
I'll do that for sure, but it could be an option.
the purchasing the warrants on it, I think, I like that idea. But also the stock is just there also, and it's only 57 cents American or something like that. So it's barely 2 times the price of just what the warrant is. And the warrant, as you told me, you can buy it at 90 cents. I know they had a lot of warrants. I don't know if we're talking Canadian or American here, but I know they had warrants at that. They've had them for a while, so now they're just starting to be traded.
Yeah,
And yeah, go ahead.
I think Halo, if you compare, because the way I look at it, their upcoming quarter should be around like 6 to 8 million US. That's because they've been giving out numbers, and that'll be
Yeah,
substantial. And come a quarter after that, they could get up to about 10 million US to 15 million. I think maybe at the. And
yeah.
they just got to
Well,
deal with the hemp processing too, so that'll help them out too.
yeah, they're going to do CBD. They're doing a facility in Oregon, in Southern Oregon, right near California, that they're going to do all the CBD bullshit out of. So that should be pretty sweet. And yeah, they do monthly revenue updates. You can add it up. Like I know all the quarterly reporting is backward looking. Like people are reporting now for the end of 2018, correct?
Yeah,
Something
I
like
mean,
that. So
it's usually about a couple months before they have to do the report. So say if they were gonna release the quarterly tomorrow, it would be only up to maybe like end of uh, February or end of
yeah, and
January.
I don't know if a lot of companies do this, but I already said it. But Halo seems to be good with giving monthly revenue updates
Yeah, I like
at the
that.
end of every
Yeah,
month, and that's very good. That's something that investors really appreciate, like me.
I think
And
I think one of their downfalls is just that they're on the Neo exchange, to be honest.
yeah, we've discussed this. I
But,
mean,
but
it
I
is
think
what it is. They
that
wanted to start smaller, I guess.
that HMUS is now on the Neo, and I think that's gonna gain a lot of traction because
That's
and
what I'm saying, man.
and Halo also got into that, so that's a good big up for Halo.
And Canaccord has a fund on the Neo.
Yeah,
There you go. Haha, your favorite,
I'm
right?
not touching that. I mean, maybe they might be a good player, but I know nothing about that, and I like to kind
Yeah.
of try to follow, even though I invest in risky stuff, I like to follow like a Warren Buffett strategy that Um, if I don't know anything about the company, I can invest money or very small amounts of money. I'm talking about like 50 to 100
Yeah.
bucks if I know nothing about it and it's very speculative.
Right. I mean, you got to look like I would say I'm only closely watching two stocks right now, and I think I I'm keeping it limited. My watch list is long as fuck, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, my watch list is 60 tickers deep. But yeah, no way am I looking at all the news and stuff for all of them every day or anything like that. If I became suddenly interested in one or three or whatever, yeah, I'd try to delve in deep. But as you said, the X factor and all these things is the management, and that's what you can kind of never really know how they're going to act. You know what I mean?
That's
And
true.
yeah, and you could do your research, and people could have their credentials and their degrees and stuff like that. But yeah, you just don't know how motherfuckers pull it off, especially in this brand new industry where
It's
nothing is
it's
right.
it's it's not just that because there's this company I just looked at. It's called Titan Mining, and John Boehner's on that board of directors.
Oh,
So, but I mean, maybe that's going to be a big player for Zinc, but it's just the thing is, these guys got their hands in so many different plays sometimes because they're just so connected with the financial industry that they
oh
can
yeah,
get their hands in everything. So they can be
well
in
yeah.
one thing and not give a fuck about the other thing. So if the company you're invested into, they don't give a fuck about, well, that's not going to do very good.
Well, I mean, you have to care. You have to, if you're invested in something, in theory, you should, even if you're John Boehner or whoever, you should have some knowledge of the product or the industry. Sometimes they don't, of course. Sometimes it's just dumb money with a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, ideally, you learn shit again, and people only have so much attention. You follow, one company or two industries, whatever. Like you, I know you follow the metals and the mining
Yeah,
and
I'm all over the place, dude. Except
yeah,
cryptos.
right, right. Yeah, that's where I come in, I guess. But it's also that oh God, I had something profound. Robin compound. But
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, basically these guys can have really good credentials, but they also they have failed ventures as well. So that's what you have to take into account.
Well, right, right. And it's just that. Sorry, I'm keep coughing here from the old vape. Wow, this thing, man. Don't do drugs. Don't smoke crack. Okay, I know what I was going to say. I have some sort of inside information from United States, uh, which is that to continue with the political connections theme, apparently the biggest um, hemp farms and private hemp slash CBD companies who are also doing extraction, which we talk about, they're in Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, and they're also connected to Mitch McConnell as well as Rand Paul. So further government connections, and these mofos, it's kind of like what used to be tobacco farms maybe, and now they're switching to hemp, right? So they got shitloads of land, they're extracting, they're fucking growing, they're shipping, whatever, man. And these guys, they're coming with the heat. You know what I'm talking about? Millions of pounds of
So
lovely
what's the
hemp
company
CBD.
called?
I actually, there's a couple of them. The one I actually am unsure of the name right now. I need to look into it, but I'm obviously giving you
So
information
this
that
is pre-IPO you're talking about, right?
these are still private companies. There's apparently sort of like it's kind of like in the public game. There's the big five weed companies or whatever, like Canopy and Aurora, Hexo, whatever. It's kind of like there's a private hemp version of that in the United States, and there's
Well, I
places
like that
like
because eventually they're
yeah,
gonna go public.
that's the big
And
possibility. And
if they do go public, there's going to be big backing. I probably big backing in this.
like
They'll get onto the NYSC, they'll get onto the Nasdaq, and they'll
they'll be
be
like they'll be the
that
next
Tilray.
acreage holdings. They'll be the next acreage holdings, the next I don't know, Harvest Health and Wellness and beyond.
Well, Tilray was private and they had all this money, and then they decided finally we're going to go public, and then they just went up.
But remember, right, exactly. I mean, oh, that's what they do too. Yeah, I. Here's the thing: is that the key is the hemp specifically, especially in the United States, because you cannot move cannabis from across state lines from one state to another. You
No?
can't do it. Nope, not allowed
Huh.
unless it's not federally legal like it is in Canada right now. So
It's not.
you
I thought
cannot.
that's what the hemp farming bill was.
No, no, I'm talking about cannabis, not hemp.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
I'm making this comparison. Yes, hemp is CBD slash hemp is legal in all 50 states, and yes, you can ship it from one state to another. So the freedom of movement for hemp CBD versus cannabis THC is much bigger in the United States. So in other words, you can grow your shit in Kentucky, ship it out to California. As far as I know, I'm sure there's some restrictions and maybe there's extra taxes or something, but yeah, man, you could just have a mega giant farm in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee or whatever, and if people are buying from you, man, they're buying CBD oils, whatever. Supposedly, these guys already have extraction facilities that'll put like Halo and all this shit to shame in their Kentucky hemp farms.
Well,
Why not, right?
Canopy bought some processing license out in New York for hemp.
Um, Canopy. Well, sure, sure. I don't know that. You know all the detailed stories I'm unaware of, but
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, the way I look at for hemp farmers, who I think will could be big hemp farmers is one, Village Farms, two, Pixis. Uh,
right,
Pixis is a tobacco farmer, and they are turning over to cannabis. They also
yeah,
own ownership in Canada Island Garden, which is LP in East Coast. I own one contract at 1750 strike price till end of May, but uh, Andrew
one
left.
contract. One.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me what was what was the company where they had the option that went from like 40 cents to $17 or something? You told me. How's the
Um,
option go?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I
Anyway,
just know for myself, for my contract, I have a contract for I paid about a buck 15 for the Pixis maybe, and I bought it when it dipped hard and the RSI was low, and then it's up to about $21, so I'm in the
I love
money.
it.
And
Texas, yeah, these are.
if
Is that
if it
another Canadian?
they're a tobacco company, but they're on the Nasdaq, I believe. And
Oh wow.
Andrew Leff likes them. He had a price target before when they blew up to about $54, and it hit around that. So it dropped again, and now it's like look to go back up. So eventually my contract's gonna expire, so I'll have to sell it. But I could make that $100 potentially into 1,000 or $2,000 or more. It depends how fast it goes up. So I just got in at the right time. But Village Farms, I think, VFF, and
Wait,
because
so
they got greenhouses
yeah,
in Texas.
I was going to say Texas sounds a lot like Village Farms based on what you told me.
Yeah,
Sort of.
they have a super effing tight float, way tighter than Village Farms. It's about it's like 4 million shares because
Uh,
a lot of it's all insiders, and the whole amount of shares is around like 9 million.
yeah, I
And
feel you. Yeah, I like the we like those tight floats, but a lot of times, sometimes even the tight floats, it can take them a while to move because
no,
they're
you're
kind of
right.
like
You're right. They can be
gearing
shorted.
up for the big move. Yeah,
I
because yeah, I feel like if the float is too tight, and it means there's not enough liquidity for the average schmo that wants to come in and get. I mean, it should be,
uh,
of course, but like it's well, yeah. I mean, there should be enough sales. Something like let's say Saniva, who I know you like, who has a real what do they have like a 17 million float or something.
about
Well, you
37
could always.
million.
Oh, really? I thought it was lower. But anyways, you could always get shares like that. But yeah, not when we're talking about no liquidity. Um, but yeah, I think that I think yeah, the float is real important, but sometimes it's so low, and you're just like, why is it so low? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
well, I don't think a low share count is bad. I think it's just the fact that they need better
right,
like media attention, and they need to go onto CNBC and get their name around, and then I think that's
well,
kind.
yeah,
I know Level Brands has a very tight float. It's around 8 million shares, and they're
right.
a hemp CBD company, and they were
Love it.
doing media attention on Wall Street, like they like have the ads on the Wall Street banners or
Yeah,
whatever, and
yeah.
that share is starting to go up. But I don't. I like that. It's just
It,
basically I can buy these stocks on contracts, and if it,
contact,
yeah,
like you mean like options
yeah,
or warrants?
no
Yeah.
contracts. But I can only get them if they're on the NYSE and the Nasdaq or
So
TSX,
yeah,
and these are
you know,
companies.
go ahead.
These are companies that are making good revenues, but there's just not a lot of knowledge about them. But they can float up so fast. So I'm willing to
Well,
take
yeah,
the
oh, for
risk on
sure.
them because
If they're in the right sector, which they are, no, you're right. I mean, honestly, if they're on the major exchange like that in the first place, it means they've done something right. So, and where you trade matters. Like, ultimately, you want to get a stock that starts from the fucking penny shit sheet and ends up on the New York Stock Exchange, right? Like an Aurora or whatever.
yeah,
So,
but
yeah, right?
but Aurora is like shitty as fuck for contracts because you'll buy a
Right.
contract for like 20 cents and then it'll only move like 10 cents and so you're left with nothing. They expire worthless so often.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've heard that 80% of options in general expire worthless.
Oh yeah, that's why
Uh,
you got to make sure you make a ton of money
yeah,
on your wins, and that's what I'm trying to do
yeah.
with like these
Uh,
Pixis and shit like that.
Yeah.
But
I'll give you another example to cross over for a second into the cryptocurrency realm, which
okay.
is I've been looking at cryptos a lot more in the sense of their float as well, because they have like a finite amount of
Oh
coins or
yeah.
whatever. And that's really changed the way I've been looking at that because so many of them have like 100 billion coins or whatever. It's like, what the fuck, man? It's never going to be worth shit, right? It's never going to be a cent or more. So yeah, and obviously, yeah, the whole thing with Bitcoin is that there's only 21 million total ever going to be. So it's a program scarcity. Um,
OTC is really bad for that too. There's a lot of
yeah,
companies that have like 2 billion and 10 billion shares out, and it's like
yeah, that's no bueno.
they're
And
like they're at
sometimes
like 0.0005, and someone's like, "Oh, they're getting into the hemp CBD. They're gonna sell 50 million
oh,
this year."
oh, dude, yeah, exactly.
It's
Grapefruit
like
Boulevard, nigga, IGNG,
I think
motherfucker.
AG&G
Yeah,
might be okay, but I'm kind of burned on that one. I'm sitting like I've made money on IG&G, but I'm waiting for it to close. We'll see. I only
I
have a
feel
hundred
ya.
bucks in it,
I feel ya.
but
Yeah, the
oils is a good one though. Is that your second stock that you own, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're talking about Next Leaf.
Next
Oils
leaf.
in Canada, but it's NXEAF in America, OTC. Um, yeah, man, I'm just loving oils. They do make a lot of tweets. I follow them on Twitter, and they keep having, it's like, oh, we're going to this conference, and oh. And they don't really have a ton of followers on Twitter or elsewhere yet, but I think it'll change. I mean, social media is kind of weird for a lot of these companies. They don't really focus on that. But yeah, man, the CEO's got the pedigree and they're in extraction. They have patents. I love that. We love patents around here. They have a patent in Canada and the US. I don't know how they're going to make money off those patents or enforce them or use them, but it's good to have them, that's
It's
for
just for
sure.
licensing. Like they can sell it to Acreage or some other big companies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a licensing expert, but yeah, if fucking whatever mega giant wants to have
That's
the patent on extraction,
That's
and
what
yeah.
that's what Can America does. They don't build the stuff themselves. They just go to the manufacturer and be like, "This is how you make our product," and then
Right, it's
they,
co-pack. It's the co-packing of the weed game, like a co-packer is.
yeah, I mean that's not going to be
Weed
their big.
business.
That's not going to be their big money. Like oils, their big money will be extracting and tolling and all that good shit.
Right. And yeah, with next leaf oils, they just seem poised for the right. Like again, they have a nice shiny bald-headed, cue ball head CEO, which is very important from Jeff Bezos on down. Halo has that too, a bald CEO. I think it means you have a big brain. And also, uh, and yeah, like you said, the CEO is Paul Peterson, and didn't you say he sold his company to Kronos, who is now sold to Altria? Who did he sell his
No, oh,
company
it was he was an advisor with Peace Naturals before it got
to?
sold to
Okay,
Kronos. So
he's an advisor.
yeah, the guy didn't build this patent and stuff like that. They
Yeah.
basically bought it from a company and then they got it all patented. They bought the technology from a black market grower in
Really?
BC. BC, the big weed game in
Right.
Canada. The best growers
Okay.
are from BC,
Okay.
and and
Yeah.
then
True.
they have all this extraction technology, and then because now they're in the finance market, they're like, okay, we're gonna scoop this up for however many million, and we're gonna turn it into 500 million or 2 billion in a couple of years. So because they're part of the capital markets. So,
Well, yeah, man. Yeah. We're all in the game, baby. That's what matters. That's what's
but
good.
I'm,
Uh, I mean, yes. I think. Uh, yeah. I like the oils. I don't know if you have any of it.
I
Again,
did,
clearly
man.
I'm in the
I'm pissed.
extraction
I'm
universe.
pissed. I'm pissed the way that PP turned out, man. I was fucking choked about that, man. They,
PP.
yeah, like private placement is never supposed to bring the share price up. And somehow, as soon as that was announced, it was like went from I don't know what it was the day before, maybe like
With
52 cents, and then it went down
next
to
week?
about what?
With next week?
Yeah,
Wait, what was the private placement?
it was
Did I
okay.
hear about this?
The private placement was at 40 cents.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I heard something about
all of
that.
a
Yeah,
sudden, then they pumped it to around 70 cents Canadian, and then now it's sitting around like 52 cents Canadian or 53. But I
right,
basically was like, oh shit, this is a PP. They're gonna bring it down to like 35 cents. And I didn't want
uh,
to just like after I knew about that because I've been burned before when this happened.
right,
So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna
right,
sell out and I'll rebuy and maybe I'll buy
right.
more or I'll take the profits. And then it ended up going to like 67 cents or 70 cents. And I was like, what the fuck? But now it's coming back down and we'll see where it's going to go. Maybe it'll go back to 45 and maybe I'll buy it
Yeah,
again.
it's been dipping. Yeah, I just try to buy on the dips, buy a little bit more like every week, so I can really leverage in and get like a good amount of shares. Because with these type of companies, I like to get hopefully five figures worth of shares, like 10,000 or more, if you can. Now that may take a while, and obviously it's going to cost a lot of money. But if you dollar cost average in over like 6 months or a while or something, this is how you build the bigger positions over time. At least, it's one way to do it. But yeah, I mean, you could still miss the wave, or it goes up and then it's just too high or whatever, or it
Yeah.
goes down and you lose confidence in it.
I
You
mean,
know how it is.
I
Yeah,
mean, basically, if it was to go to $1 or whatever, and I missed out on it or whatever, then
yeah,
it is what it is. There's always this is what David Modell was saying on one of his videos. It's like if you miss the train, there's always another train coming in 30 minutes.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean, it
Right.
might
Yeah,
not be the nicest train and it might not go up at the same rate
yep,
as Canopy Growth, but
yep.
I just don't like the idea of chasing stocks.
Or no, of course, exactly. I don't like averaging up. Maybe the slightest bit. Average up a couple cents or a couple dollars, depending on what stock you're buying. But yeah, not just FOMOing in at the top, even if you bought in lower than that, because it's gonna
Yeah.
fuck up, your average cost.
What
And yeah, go ahead. You
what
want
what
to
I
get in
like to
early?
what I like to do on these stocks is I think I have this technique that's gonna pay handsome dividends,
What is it?
and I'm just perfecting it. I mean, it things you can have a system, but there's so much noise in the markets. You have to stay so focused to like follow through on your plans. But basically,
Well,
it
yeah.
goes
Well,
this.
I was just gonna say, yeah. You need the plan, and you need to just have more a vision of where you want to be, to where it's like, you know, you have to make bets no matter what. But it's just, if you've done your homework, you've done your research, and everything's looking good, and you trust your gut, and you actually put your money on the line, that's when the magic can happen. That's when it happens, because yeah, you just because yeah, you just don't want to be like, oh, I saw that first, I brought it to you first, and you didn't buy it, right? I mean, yeah, it's like we
Yeah,
all, yeah, have
I
seen
mean,
shit that
basically, what I hope any of the viewers, I'm building my subscribership, so it's cool and a few more
oh yeah,
viewers sometimes. Like some of my videos haven't had that many views, but anyways, basically, I just I'm bringing news and I'm bringing the real honest truth on these companies, and it's really up to you to look into these companies and
you,
buy
yeah,
buy
I mean,
buy them when they're at a good opportune time. Just because I'm not
well,
talking about
yeah,
them doesn't mean necessarily it's always going to be a good time to buy that
and
stock. But
most
some of the times
important,
it might be the best time to buy a stock.
the ultimate message on the internet, especially, is do your own research. Like, come up with something that you don't hear from one of us or from some other YouTuber or whatever. Find a company that nobody else knows about, or that no one's talking about, or something like that, or no one's paying attention to, like ISO or however the fuck you pronounce it.
Isodial,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
ISO, yeah.
yeah, I mean
So
those stocks you need to be very mentally strong because there'll be so many times if you didn't do your research that
Yeah.
all these people will try to tell you that you need to sell it right now. You know,
Well,
they're not going to say that to your face, but they're bashing it so hard and making it sound like, oh, you just have to sell.
yeah.
But if you like, the thing is, you could go back so many years ago and Amazon maybe went to like $10, and now all of a sudden
Yeah.
it went down to like $3, and then people were
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, this is a shitty company. It's going to $1 because some
Right.
big short report by like some Andrew Left
Yeah.
guy says it's going to 20 cents." And then you're like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna sell it," and all of a sudden now maybe you had
Right.
10,000 shares of that, and now it's like
Yeah.
$1,900, and you're like,
Yeah. Exactly.
you're like, I mean, I don't intend to hold these stocks for that long, but at the same
Right. That's,
token, you have
yeah.
to be able to read between the lines and know what you're holding.
You got to know what you own. This is how it's freaking
know
works
know when to
because
hold them, know when to fold them.
yeah, it's very pokerish. And by the way, a lot of so many of the best investors and traders and stuff are also legitimate gamblers, whether it's
I
poker
I
or
I
bridge
I
or
honestly agree with that, man. I thought about
yeah,
that too, and I was like, you're basically okay. Say you got $50,000 or you got $250,000. You're like, okay, you got a hand that's coming to you as an investment, and you're like, okay, can I should I go all in? Like all in's pretty ballsy, and I don't recommend it. But basically, like you can put $5,000 on this stock,
yeah,
and maybe it's not work out. But then another time, maybe you put two
yeah,
thousand dollars and it turns into like $20,000. So
yeah. So you got to do that risk management, and yeah, you just again when to fold them. Yeah, it's like don't put if you're putting a big bet, put it on something that's more of again a calculated risk, something you've researched, not just some fly by night stupid idea. I was thinking too, you got to go against the crowd, right? The secret of trading is like, yeah, you have to go against the crowd or anticipate, but it's really going against yourself. It's like it's legitimately when you feel like you want to back away from something or you don't want to buy it, it's too low and all that shit. Like you mentioned with the Amazon or whatever. It's right when you think it's too low and you just think it's going down, it's never coming back. That's when you should buy it. That's probably when it's going to start going up
I
again,
know. Let's talk about
right?
Can America, because
Yeah,
I mean I don't want to talk too much about the company. I don't own it, but basically like that chart basically, okay, it went from $1.20, and now it's
down to
at
like
like
15 cents.
it was at 16.5 cents, and now it's up to
Right,
21 cents. And I was like,
right.
I'm like looking at it, and basically what I'm trying to do, I didn't get into it, is basically I'm waiting for it to go down so much and the RSI is below 30 or hits that, and then as soon as it hits like the first green candle, whether like a 15-minute or a 30-minute, and I start to see momentum build, that's when I want to start building a position in the company. And
Right.
but yeah, that
Hey,
it
I
just
mean,
what kept going down, but like it could be a few weeks and then it could be up at 40 or 50 cents. So
yeah,
you have to just hunt these bottoms. That's what Rich TV says,
exactly.
but you really do. I mean,
Yeah, you got to be like a rapper or R&B singer who's obsessed with ass. Hunt
well,
those bottoms.
Afria had all that big short report, right? And
Yeah, but I just heard they're raising like $300 million in a private placement or
oh yeah,
whatever.
but
Yeah, I mean, wow,
they're okay
wow.
right now though. They're building the business and they're pretty much cleared from all that wreck that happened. But the
Oh,
company
really?
went from about $22 or something Canadian all the way down to $5.
Sure.
I for the that short seller was saying, well, it's gonna go to $1. And I did my research and I'm like, no, this company's still solid. Like I smoked their cannabis. Their Broken
Yeah.
Coast is some of the best cannabis in all Canada. It's from Vancouver Island. And
Don't they own a lot of people, a lot of other stuff too, companies and
yeah, they have
brands and
connections. They
shit?
don't have like a lot of ownership in other companies, but their greenhouse, like I haven't touched their cannabis, but they do have a big business in Canada. So they can
Yeah.
exclude saying, but they're still one of the biggest revenue makers in all of Canada. So
There you go. Yeah. So
so
how could you? Right.
I,
But
I
you looked at it and said making that much revenue and having all that, it couldn't go down, whatever debt and all that. It's like it can't go to zero basically
no.
when they're doing this, right?
So
Yeah,
I
which
bought
you're
it.
right. Yeah.
I bought a contract at like $5 when it was at $5, and I made like $100 on it. So it was it was
Money in dead bank.
it was easy,
Um,
like because I've
oh,
been doing that on SPY companies like S&P 500 companies when their
mhm,
earnings are shit. As soon as it
right.
bottoms, then it starts to like
Yeah.
come up, and I can make some
Yeah.
decent money. But
Yeah.
they're
Because you're all resilient.
they're
Because,
sketchy.
but isn't it on those big S&P companies, when the stock moves like 3%, you could get your option could move like 400%, right? Like
Yeah,
four times your money.
basically,
Yeah,
yeah, you're
on an earnings call or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely. If you have it
yeah,
all depends on the contracts. They all have
and,
different like leverage sides. Like
right.
if they have a long-term expiration, they're not gonna like move up 400% that quick. But if you have a shorter time expiration and they move up a lot, then they
Right.
will you can make a lot of bank.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so much of the liquidity in all these big stocks is the options and the derivatives and all that bullshit, future swaps on it. So
Yeah,
it just creates like
I don't
a
I don't
tornado of shit.
I don't
So
recommend anybody like get serious into options. Basically, if you're thinking about it, don't think of it as your own investment account. Think of it like, say if you had $100,000, look at
right.
it as like, oh, I'm gonna play with $500 to $1,000 because you can still make tons of money on $500 to $1,000 in the
Oh yeah,
option world. So,
yeah. I mean,
but if you play,
if you have yeah, if you start with 1,000 and triple it like in a week or whatever with an option, and you keep doing that over and over, yeah, it could grow big for sure.
the hardest part for me that's been a struggle is basically it's the brain power that you need to execute on these things because
Yeah, well, yeah.
you
The
have
problem
to
is that options, you have to be right twice. You have to be right about the direction and the timing.
yeah, you have
Like,
to be right about the contract, like how much you paid for the contract, and you also have to be right about getting in at the right
right,
time. So
right.
there's a lot of things, and it's a lot more pressure. Like the amount of moves that
Yeah.
it can go up and down, it can really like
Well,
mess with your mind. That's why you don't want to put a lot of money in. You put in like
yeah.
50 to a hundred
Playing on
dollars
the
for
greed,
one or two contracts, or
playing on the greed. They are a useful tool and all that. But yeah, it's too fast moving. There's so many underlying parts, like all the Greek letters and the gamma and delta and everything,
yeah,
and it all affects it. And the average person, myself included, not that I'm average, but we, it's like, come on, studying
you
all
need
that
a
shit
lot
for
of
such a
brain power,
long,
man. You basically need to be
yeah,
like, okay, I'm gonna find a certain contract that's a low price, and then you're also getting it at the right time. So before when I was just buying stocks, like I still buy stocks, but the only
yeah,
thing I have to be responsible for like is trying to get it in at a great buying price, at a low
yeah.
price,
I mean,
and then wait for it
yeah,
to go back
exactly.
up. And if it
And
goes
I like,
down,
yeah,
was
yeah, you're right. I'm trying to be in on the philosophy of just getting in early on stuff that I see potential in, because obviously early risk brings biggest reward in in the free market, whatever, venture capital, public market, capital markets, as they say. So yeah, and certainly, you know, it doesn't always mean when you get in early that you're going to get in at the absolute best price, whatever. But if you really believe in something going forward, and you think a year or two, whatever from now, it'll be bigger, then yeah, you can look at it with a lot of big public companies and everything. They IPO, they come out, they dip, and then they go to the moon eventually. But
well,
yeah, it's time horizon, man. That's what's important.
well,
But
isn't Cresco Labs they're an extraction company, is that correct?
I think they're more beyond that. Cresco,
But they got the name Labs though.
yeah, they're the vertical. They're kind of the vertically integrated, like
Yeah.
seed to sale type of company. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're playing around with all that stuff. But
Okay.
they're not like Halo is a pure extraction company. Cresco, I think, is dealing with in a lot
But
more different pies.
why isn't there like such a big player? Because okay, MediPharm Labs just did $10 million in sales. last
Yeah,
quarter.
yeah,
And
uh,
Halo, Halo's gonna probably do 7 or 8 million. But
right.
you would think that because the US of A is so big, that there should be a player in the market that's just a pure extraction player that's
Yeah,
doing
but
like 15 to 25 million.
right, but it's like the infrastructure it doesn't even quite exist yet. It's like I'm
Oh,
saying, to be an extractor in the United States, you have to set up a facility in every single state that you
oh
want to
yeah,
play
that's
in.
it. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So again, so you want to go to Florida, you got to go get rent a building or whatever it is, get all your cannabis extraction oil shit set up and do the whole thing there. So think if you had to do that in 10 states, think of how fucking expensive that would be, right? And people like the whoever's in the world, are doing that. The MSOs, multi-state operators. But that's what I'm saying. When it comes to the THC part of things, they really got the squeeze. But it's weird. I think in the long run, it'll make these companies stronger, but it's a huge barrier to entry to start off with. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, you do make a point that's true. I mean, it takes a lot of time to build up an asset in a state. So
Right.
that's that's the cost of capital. And
Yeah.
basically like with MetaFarm Labs and Valens isn't doing that great revenues. They did like 2.2 million Canadian, which is
Yeah. You were. I
but
mean, MetaFarm's been a rocket ship.
yeah,
MetaFarm is
well,
like up recently. It's gone.
well,
It's over
I
doubled in
I
no
think they
time.
can still go up a lot, but I'm not going to chase them because a
Right.
reason
Yeah.
why is they're working in Australia and they're going to be a global extraction player. So for cannabis companies, and then they'll work with them across the world. But
Right.
and then they can be the dominant or maybe Valens takes that dominant play is the number one
Right.
extraction company in Canada. I don't really think that oils will become as dominant as MetaFarm Labs is, just because they're not the first mover, and they can
That's what I'm saying.
they
In
can
early,
chase
right?
them like Aurora does, but even though Aurora maybe is a way better company than Canopy, Canopy was the first to secure all that money.
Right. I mean, it's like hopefully the market will just be big enough that everyone can have their day in the sun. I think someone like Nextleaf is really counting more again on their licensing sort of play, and they're going to do what they can in the pure extraction game. But yeah, I mean, if there's enough demand, I guess there should be
No,
multiple
I
viable
think there'll
players.
be enough demand, especially with the hemp. Like, I
Right.
don't think they're gonna have any problem making revenues. They'll make
Yeah.
and they'll become a profitable company, which I think that's why I think getting in right now, even though it's more than I want to pay, I
Right.
think you're getting a
Look.
really good deal for the company. I'm
Yeah.
really cheap and I don't want to go down to like 40 cents and be like, oh, okay, fuck. It's I
Dude.
pay too much.
Yeah, but I mean, right? It's like, I mean, if they only have they have a good float. There's only like
Uh,
130 million shares
yeah.
total, and I don't think they plan on making any more either. So
Well,
hopefully,
you told me about the mobile labs. I mean, yeah, the
yeah.
mobile labs. And another company that's doing that as well is Pump. They're doing mobile labs, and they
Pump
just
is what's the actual name of the company?
Pump it.
Not that's not the ticker, the CSD ticker.
That's their ticker. I don't know the name of the company, but
Yeah, I go by the fucking names of the things. But yeah, I've looked
I
into Pump.
usually
Yeah,
do. But I the reason why I don't for that is because the CEO is the same CEO from Huge, or he's like really connected with that, and
huge,
I don't like
huge,
that company. I
huge,
just think
huge.
it's a big pump and dump, and maybe they'll be a big player, but they got 1.3 billion shares out. Now he seems to be
Yeah,
focused on Quadron has extraction technology, so they just merged with Pump.
that's whoa, little pump, the rapper.
No, dude,
Is he?
talking extraction,
Oh,
bro.
okay. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Oh yeah, so we'll finish it up soon here, but I'll give you a pick of the moment, and I probably mentioned this on our last show, but I've been looking into them a little bit more. But again, out of California, that Plus product, and I know you
Oh,
know them.
You
I've been
think
looking a little
so?
bit. The CEO was on Midas recently. I'll tell you what. Here's what's making me think so, because there are apparently 20,000 different products sold in dispensaries in California, and Plus has basically the number one like selling product out of
Really?
all
What
the
is it?
yeah, it's like their watermelon gummy fucking thing. Yeah, so it's a cannabis
Oh, that's good.
watermelon gummy. Yeah, so they have the number one and maybe number two or number four, like that. So in other words, they've conquered their dominion of the California, gummy edible market. So if that's not, earning your stripes, I don't know what is, right? Biggest cannabis market in the world in terms of, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
small whatever. So I
but
like that, but
but
we'll see. What's
but
your
their
thought?
revenues are pretty small still. I mean, that's what
Really? If they're the best-selling thing
they
and they're still
they're
at
not
small revenue?
small, but it's like what is it like 2.5 million, 3 million?
Uh,
It's not like 15 million. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, it could be more, but again, I mean, they are competing, and they are a very niche brand segment.
Yeah.
And I do think, and I think they were talking about this, the best brands are really going to be what the end consumer, relates to in this industry. The
Vape
average person
pens.
on the yeah, the average person on the street doesn't care about the scientific method of extracting cannabis oils done in labs all throughout North America, people in white clothes. They just want to go to the dispensary, get some good shit, get high, edibles, gummies, whatever. So they're going to buy the stuff that, they know and that has proven to be good, like a Plus product or a whatever fucking thing, Kinley beverage or something that, become the Coca-Cola of cannabis,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a big thing that I'm keeping my eyes and my ears focusing on is the best kind of edible and infused beverage is in like the vape products because that's why I also really like Tilt and I'm a big shareholder in Tilt is
Yeah.
because they
How
got
come
the Jupiter vape pens.
Oh wow, how come Tilt has been doing nothing but going down recently?
No, they went
Or did
up.
it come
They
back up?
actually went
Okay.
up. They hit up.
Okay.
Okay, what happened is they went down to about 215, I think, Canadian, and then it shot up to $3 a few days ago, and then it like ended the day at 280, and then it went down to about
Yeah.
260. And I bought
Okay.
some at around 220, and I could have sold them and made profit, but it's gone to about 260. I just think it's kind of consolidating, and eventually it's going to ride up to like 3 to 4 eventually. It might take
Yeah.
some time, but I just don't want to. I don't want it to go to $4 or $5 and be like, oh, I sold my shares. You know?
So it's exactly. It's a longer term winner. It's a medium term winner.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's one of those things. It's hard because like some of these companies like Tilt, they're doing bananas revenue and they don't really get a whole lot of airplay or heat. And then these other companies, it's like, oh, you're almost gonna do revenue soon, but you're hot as fuck. It's
yeah.
like yeah,
It is. It's a really fucking corrupt world, and I think a lot of it has to do with all these like kind of groups that are kind of trying to pump each stock, and it has to do with the Twitter.
shorters and the investment bankers, the people that really want run like Wall Street and all that,
That
the
too,
investment bankers
absolutely. They'll
and the
pump stocks.
fucking
Like a
yeah.
guy like me, I don't have the big money to fucking move a stock. I could probably move like a 0.0004 stock if I put in like $5,000, but I'm not gonna fucking move a stock that's like a dollar or whatever, if I
something
throw
with
in $5,000.
something with a trillion share float or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but yeah, it's like yeah, you need yeah, the shorting and the big block trading and over the counter trading and institutional whatever, just big gamblers. Yeah, that's what makes you think. But we're all told that's the thing. How come we're going if we're told that you focus on the fundamentals and who's making all the revenue and those companies will win in the end, but it doesn't exactly work like that. So what is it? How come it doesn't work like that? Like at Tilt, for instance. Like how come
uh,
everyone is buying Tilt and moving the stock?
um, I think what one of the big things that are against Tilt is they're pretty new and they haven't been on CNBC. Acreage has been on CNBC. They
Well,
also
yeah, they got this.
they
political
yeah, they don't have that
humbucker.
backing. They also
Yeah,
they have lower profit margins. Like they have similar profit margins to a Kush bottle, so it's around like 10 to 20%, whereas
right, right.
probably like a Halo or a Curaleaf's got around in like the 60 to 70% range for
You
profits.
know, well, yeah, because you want the highest margin. And if you're a vertically integrated thing, you're spending a lot of money on all the different shit. If you're four businesses mixed together,
Oh,
you're
they're
spending a
still
lot on,
losing
yeah,
money on
right,
operation expenses, but in the
yeah,
long term, that business model, if it goes to scale and it's like around the globe, they can be like a profitable, like a PE of like an 8 or something crazy and make like the
right,
shareholder like they could eventually some of these companies we're in the early innings like the whole industry might do like for the public companies might do around like 6 to billion this year if you if
right, right.
if you count like USA, and that might be too much. Like it might not even be that, but
Right.
in a few years, that's going to be like 50, or it's going to be 100, or it's going to be
Yeah,
200 billion. So these
yeah,
companies that are doing like say only like 35 million, where you're like, oh well, that's not a lot. Eventually, they'll be doing like 200 million, and
yeah.
they'll get up to like 500 million, and they'll be able to make every quarter like 50 million in cash flow, and then they can eventually like give out dividends and shit like that. Like
Yeah,
ideally, that'd be awesome.
become an actual fucking big boy stock, basically, on the big exchange that gives out dividends and has supreme liquidity and options and all the hot shit, right? And that's what happens when you're on New York Stock Exchange and whatnot. Yeah, it's like who will be the first weed company in the S&P 500, or is there one already? I
Well,
don't know. Is Canopy
yeah,
already
that's a
there?
good question. I don't. Canopy isn't. Canopy probably will be the first.
But there are companies that are connected, like Scott's Miracle Grow and stuff, that might be
Yeah,
on there.
Scotts Miracle Grow is on the S&P 500. So there
Yeah,
there
so that's
already
not a
is
weed
like
company, though.
Constellation Brands is. So
Yeah,
technically
right,
there
right,
already is, but
right. So we know, like, we mean a company that started as a cannabis or hemp or
yeah,
whatever
I
company.
think
Yeah,
it'll be interesting though because I don't even know how Canopy works. Okay, if Constellation doesn't own all of Canopy, but when Canopy is owned all by like a majority ownership, then will it just be Constellation Brands? There won't be any Canopy growth. It'll just be a
yeah.
subsidiary.
Well, yeah, it already kind of is, and that's just how it works. That's how business works. I mean,
I know,
if
but
you're gonna,
that's not going
yeah,
to be attractive to investors when they're like, oh, it's Constellation Brands. That doesn't say any cannabis.
yeah, I don't know. Does it all just fold into them? Like, are they gonna have different stock, still have different stocks, or fold into one
Who
stock?
knows?
Or
I mean, I guess
yeah,
it's, but Constellations. I don't think, I don't think you're gonna get a good dividend from Canopy ever. I don't think that's the company. Canopy's always gonna be
yeah,
like a Tesla. Tesla's
yeah.
gonna.
These companies are far. Wow, someone was barreling down here in a pickup truck. This shit was fire. Yeah, I mean, these companies, they're not fucking dividends for the 100-year-old,
Well,
elders in the stock market and shit like
some
that,
some
or
of these
crazy
companies will be. I think some of them will, but
in time, yes, in time, but
but
not yet, not yet.
Canopy's not like maybe one time maybe they'll have like a 0.5%
Yeah,
dividend, but you're never gonna get like a 4% dividend from Canopy, and that'll be like a long term. Whereas some of these other companies who are maybe extraction companies, like say like Metafarm Labs, if they start making like $1 billion per year and they're making like 150, $200 million in cash flow every year, they could give out a dividend of like 2 or 3%, I'm sure, and still have tons of cash flow to run the business. So I
you
don't know.
never know.
I
Yeah,
think
could be a good thing.
extraction
Uh,
and
yeah.
consumer goods is probably where
Uh,
those companies are
yeah,
going.
I think branding, extraction, we know is already on the up and up for real. I think branding and the biggest brands and whoever captures that space really, like is actually being bought by people, are going to do really well. And I think the next waves are synthetic cannabis and CBD made from
InMed.
yeast and fungus, in med, stuff like that. And that's the next wave. And beyond that, who knows? So yeah, I think in another year or two, we're going to hear more about the synthetic stuff,
and,
which, by the way, could put a lot of these companies out of business,
and
or
the
drastically
global
damage
hemp
them.
CBD, the global hemp CBD around Europe and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, oh, of course, global and who's shipping it or whatever, but who is going to get into the not only the synthetic but the medical patenting of right and secure? And there's already people working on. I mean,
Abacus,
Axim, Axim
abacus.
has patents. Zynerba has patents. What's it called? Who do we? InMed has something. They're working on some shit like that. I don't know if they have patents, but they're working on the synthetic, like bacteria-based cannabinoids, and that could be a serious game changer. But we're not there yet. It's like future tech type stuff from now, but near
Yeah,
future. Yeah. So we'll see. And supposedly they could make stuff better than all the farms and do it at scale. So an unlimited amount of like CBD or whatever from those guys, whoever nails that. But that's again, that's crazy. That's the other thing is in terms of investing, I don't know if the general public is even going to understand that, like synthetic biocannabinoids that they make out of fungus or
well,
whatever.
I
And
don't think they need to understand it because does
yeah,
anybody really understand GW Pharmaceutical? You know, beside maybe a few nerds.
well, yeah, but they did big. But yeah, the point is what products you have. GW made a product and has the first CBD medicine, right? That's like patented and stuff. So yeah, that's the big deal. It's getting to the end consumer as always, of course. Whoever can get it there. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. I've
Yeah,
been standing outside for a while. It's been great talking to you. I'll welcome any closing words. I'm gonna walk back to my apartment
yeah. No, it
over
was a
here.
good chat,
It's
and
good.
give us a thumbs up, and it was good chatting with you. And until next time, peace. And yeah, I hope you learned a little bit about the cannabis industry. This guy, he's a knowledgeable guy about USA. He's got a lot of good insights about uh, extraction companies and just cannabis companies in USA. So I'm glad to have him on the show. And until next time, peace.
Always good to be here. Capiche?